some incompetent coding. Here's a bunch of my stuff, and what I'm working on is basically a program to do this sort of thing. Now, this isn't the greatest example of it, and it's a short one, but I don't want to use up a load of my disk space just showing it off, but that's what it does. This is the editor for my code. From here, I can run it. My code is quite a mess, because I am an incompetent coder. I'm not trained, so this is the way the program works. It's drawing this line recursively. This is the preview screen, and I can change the number of recursions in the preview, and it slows down, but that's fine. And it can render animations and the static images. And the animations are created by creating these loops. It's very simple, but it needs more options. That animation was the sort of thing it can do, but I wanted to be able to do other things. Being able to line up the points very accurately would be handy. So I want guides. I want grid, angle, and length snaps so that I can make these shapes more regular. And this is my code. And where am I in it? I am in somewhere. I'm in the recursor file, and I'm in the work zone class. The work zone is the gadget which runs that canvas where I'm editing the actual curve, whatever you would call it. I know basically nothing about this. I know that it's a kind of mathematical shape. I know how to draw it. What I've done so far in terms of making the guides, the snapping guides, grids and length and angle guides, is I know whether or not they are active, and I am storing the sizes for them. Let me look. So I've got gadgets to change the size of the grid. Look at that. That's no good. And the length, angle, and to toggle them on or off. That is all they do. They do nothing else. I store the values, and that's it. But I am loading and saving them. Grid snap. Whereabouts is it? Yeah. Grid snap size. Length snap size. I'm planning to not edit this because it's really just to try and keep me focused, but I notice that my Windows video capture is not looking too healthy. I'll see how it looks. Anyway, I know the sizes. What I need to do is make the points snap to them as I edit them when those values are when the flags are active. When you are snapping to the grid, it has to snap to the grid. The work zone class that I have here is an extension of my gadget class. My gadget class runs the GUI. The GUI is my own, and it's pretty janky, like a lot of my code, but that's okay. It's nice to have my own GUI and be able to go in and do things to it. One of the things the GUI has is this work class. work method. And in the work zone version of the work method, I deal with what happens to the mouse. I have a very simple way of deciding what the mouse is doing. And this is the significant part of it here. Mouse state M dragging. What is happening here? At this point in the code, the user has clicked on one of the hotspots and has not released the mouse button yet. Here it checks to see if you have released the mouse button. If mouse button, mouse down left, do the stuff. If not, make it normal. Now here is what has to change. I have to find some way of applying the restraints. And there are 3 different restraints. So I think I'm going to start with a new method on the work zone, and it's going to be find restraint. It'll be find restraints. The reason I have doubts is I want to think about what's going to be displayed on the worktop, the work zone gadget. At the moment that you have the restraints active, do I want to display the grid continually? Do I want to display the nearest restraints? Do I want to snap to the restraints at all times, or do I want to snap to the restraints when falling within a certain radius? I think that I want to snap to them within a certain radius because there are going to be a few different types of restraint. And I want a visual cue for each type. A grid for the grid restraint. I want, I guess, length markers on the length restraint and angle markers for the possible angles that you could place a line to, but it's made more tricky by the fact that some points that you're moving are connected to 2 lines, obviously. So, sorry, I should try and run this and see if I can demonstrate what the problem will be. And I should probably also have a version of it I can run more quickly without compiling it. Anyway, I'm chatting away, I'm talking rubbish, I'm trying to get myself to concentrate on this. I'm just going to try and record for half an hour, because this is not the sort of thing I usually do. I'm wittering about this project. This is the purpose of doing this, it's to try and concentrate. I'll just describe the problem here. And I really think that the desktop capture software is having a bad effect on my processor. I'm running a pretty modest laptop, so we'll see how I do. When grid snapping is on, I want to see the grid on the screen, not just the origin. And when I grab an object, when it gets within a certain distance of a grid intersection, it should snap to it. When length snapping is on, when I grab a point, an indication of the nearest length snaps should appear along both of the lines that the point is connected to, or the line it is connected to in the case of only one. Getting near to one of these lengths should snap it, but of course it's got the complication in the case of a point connected to 2 lines that it has to do some consideration to find the nearest point that both lines adhere to the length. Similarly with the angle restraint. When the angle restraint is switched on and you click on a point, guides can appear to show the nearest or the possible positions, and it can snap to the nearest, but it has to do it in such a way that it satisfies both lines. So if I grab this point and I have an angle snap of 45 degrees, say, a line should be drawn here, and a line should be drawn here, and a line should be drawn here, and a line should be drawn here, at 45 degrees through each of the two adjacent points. And it should snap to them, but it'd be down here somewhere for 45 degrees, say, or up here somewhere. Find it there, and there's another one there, and another one there. So, tricky, how do I do that? The grid's easy, and the others are more difficult. Find the nearest restraints. That's a general thing. Now this is where my incompetence comes in, because I really have trouble thinking through these things. First off, my general thought is I can find all the nearest possible restraints for each class of restraint. Then I can find the nearest of those restraints. Yeah, nearest of those. And the neatest of them, the nearest of those. Now, what exactly does that mean? It means the grid. Grid, length, and angle. I'm not going to think about drawing them just yet. Drawing them comes into play in the finish draw method of my gadget. It's another hideous looking function, but it kind of has no, well, that's the way I've done it for now. But I suppose what I can do is start here, and I can give myself a bit of a head start by maybe just displaying the grid, because I can program the grid aspect of it most easily. How on earth do I display the grid? Now, what are the problems with displaying it? The problems with displaying it are that I'm displaying it on the worktop, and the worktop has a transformation. Have I figured out the transformation yet? I think I have, yeah. The worktop has a transformation, and I want the grid to be endless. So I don't want to be starting from the origin. I want to be starting from the sides. That's the thing I need to think about now. What have I got here? Already I've figured out that. Face left, face right. There's something else I want, though. It's this, right? I want to think about not the position of the origin, because it could be anywhere, but the position of the sides of the gadget. This is the sides of the gadget. Let me see. This is my hideous GUI. I'm making these local floats so that I find it easier to think about. Face left, face right, face top, face bottom. These are the sides of the gadget as it actually appears on the screen. This gadget class contains a couple of matrices. The matrix and the inverse of the matrix, which describes the position of the display. Here I assign L, R, T, and B the values of the left, right, top, and bottom of the screen after being, what is it? I'm so bad at, like I say, I'm totally incompetent, but basically using the inverse of the display matrix to get positions of the sides of the screen. And I want to use those to make the grid, I think. And it should be a case of something simple. An offset and a spacing. horizontally and vertically. Let's see. Now, this is where I am no use at all because I'm very bad at maths, but I got to think about the position of the grid and the position of the sides of the screen. What am I looking for here? Look at all my silly programs. I want something that will let me draw really easily, and GIMP is not it, but I am going to give it a go anyway. GIMP is going to be too slow under the circumstances, but I need to think about the position of the origin. No, I don't. I need to think about the position of the sides of the screen. The distance between the lines is going to be based on the scale and the none of that. It's going to be based on the scale and the grid size selected. What on earth was I doing here? I like GIMP, but what on earth am I trying to do? The screen and the grid lines going all the way from the top to the bottom and the left to the right. This spacing here is based on the grid width and the display scale. Which it is, I'm just not sure. Well, like whether or not I'm dividing or multiplying, I'm not sure. This here is the grid height and the display scale. Let's say that we'll call off float. I'll make it off x for the vertical lines, the horizontal offset equals 0.0, and local space x float equals something. Now it is project grid snap size. Now, is it multiplied or divide? When you're zoomed right in, the number is like what? This is my bloody problem. I find it so hard to think. No, when you're zoomed right in, the number is bigger. So I want to multiply it by project dot display Z, which is a silly name. This project class stores everything about the current setup of the project, basically, for saving projects, and it's saved automatically when the editors quit. So it stores all these bits of information, which is fine, but it's annoying to type it all out. I'm at nearly 20 minutes here, and I'm just thinking really, really slowly, like I always do. I want to think about what that off-x should be, and to do that, I am going to just try and think about this super simple situation where I always try and do this. Consider the simplest, I guess, where the setup is such that the origin is right in the center of the screen, and the screen is 10 units wide and it is 10 units high, and what's happening, and the grid is also 10, no 5, say, so that it's going to be like this. Now, what I need to do is use the information about display X and display y, maybe combined with the information about display z, which is like a display zoom, to figure out how far away from the edge of the screen that grid line should be. Of course, because I chose grey. This is why I did choose it, because I know it's 0. Because if the grid width is 5 and the screen's 20, I'm so incompetent, 20 units wide, this bit's 10, the grid width's 5, there's the origin. Then I know that this offset is 0, so I have to just figure out dx and dy, the display offset. When it's 0, 0, the origin's in the center of the screen, so I figure the matrix that transforms this display such that when the display xy is 0, 0, the origin's in the center. So when x is 0 and y is 0, and the zoom is 1, offset has to be 0, or off x anyway has to equal 0. I am very incompetent. So how do I get 0 out of that? Well, for one thing, I can divide the distance from the origin to the side of the screen by the grid width. And actually I can do that, I think, under any circumstances, wherever the origin is. Like I say, this is probably so obvious, but anyway. What good does that do me? Oh, I know what it is. It's to know the number of squares but from the origin to this side of the screen. So origin x minus face left, as I've called it in my code, because what it really defines is the left hand side of the face of the work zone gadget. An origin x is actually at 0 in this setup. Nice, I did it to 2 decimal places. And I know that face left is at -5. No, it's not, it's at -10. Because wherever that side of that gadget appears on the screen, face left is its transformed, or L. Talk about being rubbish. Face left is where it is on the screen. L, as it is in my code, I can show you. There's face left, face right. These are components of the gadget. This is left, right, top, bottom, which is the transformed aspect of that component. Sorry, wasted several seconds doing that. So I know that in this setup it's at -10, so that is like minus 10. It's 10. Yeah, minus a negative. Divided by 5, which is the grid width. Nice, it's actually grid size, because I've just decided to go for square grids. Divided by 5 equals 2. So now what's the value of that? The value of that is that it allows me to figure out the fraction of a grid width that this might be away. It figures out exactly here, so I should just imagine a slightly different setup. Got another 5 minutes, so I'm really just going to go through at the end of this because I'm so bad at thinking about it. But all the same setup, but with the origin off to the side. Now what that actually means is, because I make this matrix such that the center of the screen is the display xy, that means the current coordinates of this would be, say, minus 3, say. X equals minus 3. Or does x equal 3? Because am I looking at the origin? Yeah, no, see, dx is minus 3, because that's the display x. But the origin x has now gone to 3 on the display. See? And it's still that. And I know now that if origin x is at 3, then this L, the transformed position of the left hand side, is at minus 13. Is it? No, well, no. That's at 3. This was at minus 10. Yeah, it's now at minus 13. So in in this setup, it would be 0 minus minus 13, which is 13, divided by 5. Sorry for all the mess, but I'm just kind of going through this in my mind. Equals 2 point a bit. I'll do it on a calculator. 13 divided by 2. No, it equals 6.5. No, that's because I'm 13 divided by 5. It's 2.6. 2.6. That 0.6 is the bit that tells me how large a gap I have to do in here. I know that there's 2 whole grid squares between the origin and the side of the screen. And I know there's a little bit, a 0.6. And I know that the width of a whole square is 5, so 0.6 times 5 would give me that. And I get that by just subtracting the integer of this from this, so there's a bit of code for that. I've just got about a couple of minutes left for the end of this experiment, but let's see if I can actually make sense of that. So I'm saying the origin position minus the left position divided by origin minus left, origin x minus left, divided by grid size. I'll just code that bit in. Origin x. I'm just going to write it down here first. No, I'm not. I'm going to write it in here. This sum won't make sense yet. I've got about another minute or two. So where is the origin? What have I got it as? OT. That's origin transformed, because I store the origin as 0, 0, but origin transformed gets updated. I think whenever the matrix gets updated. Might not be. I might be doing it here somewhere. It doesn't matter. It stores the origin, and I can tell because here is where I'm drawing the grid through the origin. So it's origin x minus the left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to use more brackets than I need to because I'm just a clumsy, thoughtless person. I've got about another minute. Divided by the grid size, which is stored inside the project thing. All of that is one thing. Now, actually, what I want to do is something else. I've got no idea what to call this because it's just a little temporary thing. What I'll call it. Because what this is, what is it really? It's the distance divided by the grid size. So I'll take the float of that. So it's the, oh gosh, I hate thinking of variable names and it takes me all my time, so I'm just going to call it temporary number float equals this thing. Now, what I want is the difference between, that is far too many brackets for that. Now, what I want is the difference between that value and its own integer. So this temporary number minus the integer of this temporary number. Now I know that a monkey, the language I'm using, just truncates floats to make integers, I'm pretty sure. What have I got wrong? That's grid snap size. It's that multiplied by grid size. Project.grid snap size. I told you I'm just so incompetent. My names are not good. Like, I deliberately chose the name grid snap size to make it consistent with length and angle snap size, and I got it wrong every single time I typed it. Okay, right, I'm going to save it, and I've done half an hour, and I'm not even sure if this video's worked, so I'm going to leave it. I have no idea if this is really right or not. Almost every time I do something I get it wrong, so I'm probably going to do another half hour soon, and hopefully I'll make things a bit like this, but nicer, if I get this finished. Anyway, I think all I do is close this. Looks like it's in a lot of trouble.